Thank you, Ms. Goodman. We're going to have two students read the bios, okay?
Tuskegee Airman Dr. Eugene J. Richardson, Jr. was born on September 18, 1925 in Cleveland, Ohio. His early education took place primarily in Toledo, Ohio. I keep shaking. Dr. Richardson was living in Camden, New Jersey when he earned the Statue of Pre-Aviation Cadet and Interactive Duty in October 1943 at Kessler Field, Mississippi for basic military training. In February 1944, Eugene went to Tuskegee, Alabama for pilot training and subsequently received his pilot's wings and officer's commission on March 11, 1945 with Class 45A. Dr. Richardson trained for combat in the P-40 and P-47 aircraft at Walter Barrow Army Airfield, South Carolina. When the war ended in May 1945, he left military service July 1946 to pursue his goal of higher education. He earned a Bachelor's of Science degree from Temple University and a Master's and Doctor's degree in Education from Pennsylvania State University. Dr. Richardson taught math and science, was a vice principal and principal of middle schools in the School District of Philadelphia. He retired after 35 years of service.
Arron B. Watkins, a native of Memphis, Tennessee, and a graduate of Melrose High School, enrolled at Tuskegee University in August 1963. Majoring in electronics with a minor in business, Arron made the dean's list while becoming a commissioned officer in ROTC and completing the Army ROTC flight instruction program under Chief Anderson, the chief instructor to the Tuskegee Airmen who flew Eleanor Roosevelt. Arron became a member of the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity in the spring of 1965 and received his 50-year pin in 2015. Arron was inducted into the Tuskegee University Sports Hall of Fame in 2013 for baseball. Arron earned his AAS degree in computers from City College of Chicago and MBA in business from the University of Detroit. Arron served in the United States Army as an officer in the Signal Corps Aviation Branch, completing his aviation training for helicopters, receiving his wings, and was selected for advanced training for the Chinook helicopter in 1968. CPT Watkins served in Vietnam in the Central Highlands as an aircraft commander of the Chinook, where he received the Bronze Star and the Air Medal. Returning to the United States, he was sent to Frankfurt, Germany as an operation officer, later promoted to company commander of the Data Processing Company. CPT Watkins' final assignment was as a military academy liaison officer for the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, New York. Arron is listed in the book, The 600 MOL Black Helicopters Pilot in Vietnam by Dr. Joe Pons. The book states there were 37,500 Army helicopter pilots trained, deployed, and served in the Vietnam War, of which only 600 were black. After leaving the military, he was employed by General Motors Corporation, Chevrolet Division at their world headquarters in the startup of their computer operation. At their headquarters, Arron was promoted to district manager, where he excelled and won several District Manager of the Year awards. He was promoted to Zone Business Manager, which included working with dealers and buying and selling dealerships. Arron has retired from General Motors. Arron is a member of Bethlehem Baptist Church, where he has been a Sunday school teacher and currently teaches the Bible study class every Wednesday for the past several years. He is a member of the Philadelphia chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen and serves as the treasurer, and is a member of the Speaking Borough program, which has carried him to various military bases, colleges, high school, FedEx World Headquarters, and organizations telling the Tuskegee Airmen story. Arron has served as college advisor at Ursinus College for the undergraduate chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity.
Wonderful job. Let's give our students a round of applause. And let's also welcome Mr. Arron Watkins.
Good morning, young ladies and young men. As you're sitting here, so quiet here and attentive. I know when I was in high school, we'd be noisy, but you're doing great this morning. It was not too long ago that I was sitting like this at my high school, and someone was telling me about the Tuskeege Airmen. And I was in ROTC back in 1960, as I was talking to some of the cadets here. And believe it or not, we got excellent training about history. We got leadership training as a student. And we had many history lessons. So today, we're going to engage you, that is the Tuskegee Airmen, in World War II history. And we're going to talk about the experiment that took place. The experiment being the story of the Tuskegee Airmen. And the greatest thing about it today, you have living history here. We have Dr. Richardson here, who is one of the World War II Tuskegee Airmen and fighter pilot. He is, like I said, from Cleveland, Ohio, grew up here, taught math in the city school system, and was a principal in the school system. So we have living history today. And I don't know if you know this, but the Tuskegee Airmen here, last year in March, celebrated the 75th anniversary of the Tuskegee Airmen, when the first class took place. And this year, March 21st, will be the 76th year. So you are part of history here, looking at history. And Pennsylvania has a very rich history of black aviation. And when I say that, I'm talking about a guy by the name of Chief Anderson, who was the chief instructor for the Tuskegee Airmen. He was born in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania. Anybody know where Bridgeport, Pennsylvania is? Do anyone know where Bridgeport is? Pennsylvania. Okay. Right outside of King of Prussia, right? So, okay. I'm sure you go to King of Prussia Mall there. But he was born there, and he grew up in Bryn Mawr. He is the person who flew the president's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, and one of the reasons that they got the program. He is also the person who taught me how to fly when I was 19. And guess what? He taught himself how to fly too. No one would teach him how to fly. And Dr. Richardson will talk about that. Another part of history is this guy up here. His name is Emmerich Malik, born in Sunbury, Pennsylvania. He was the first black to ever receive a pilot license in 1912. His license number was 105. In other words, he was the 105th person to ever receive a license in the USA. And he flew around Norristown right here, back in 1912, 13, 14. He flew around Norristown. And he is one of the guys that helped develop aerial photos. You know, taking photos from the plane. Emmerich Malik is this guy. And no one knew of him until about 6 years ago. And what happened was that this lady, and I'm gonna use the term, this white lady, was up in the attic, and she was going through this chest. And when the chest was locked, and when she finally got into the chest, there was another little chest in there. And she opened that particular chest. And in this particular chest was a picture of Emmerich Malik, the same picture that you're looking at. Not only was his picture there, but his license was in there. License number 105. And all his credentials. And she looked and she said, "Who is this person?" And everybody in the room went silent. No one said a word. No one said a word. She said, "Who is this person?" And then one of her aunts said, "This is your great uncle." And she said, "My great uncle?" "Yes. He is the first black to ever receive a license." And she was proud that this black man was her uncle. And this lady is still living. And I don't know if anyone been to the William Penn Inn to eat. Anyone been there? Raise your hand. Tell your parents to take you. This lady plays the harp at William Penn Inn. Her name is Mary Gross. And she is the lady that discovered this picture. And she came to the Tuskegee Airmen, and we helped her document this event, all the information. And now when you go to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., you will see Emery Malik, the first black to ever receive a pilot license. This was buried history. And we don't want to hide history. And that's what the Tuskegee Airmen is all about. We're trying to keep their legacy alive, to tell the history of the Tuskegee Airmen. How many saw the Red Tail movie? Raise your hand. Okay. Everything in the Red Tail movie was taken from the actual combat record. It's true. Yeah, the Tuskegee Airmen did sink a destroyer. They were the first one in aviation history to ever do that. And no one would believe them that they did it. And on every camera, on every plane, was a camera that took pictures. And you remember the scene where they were sitting looking at the film when they sank the destroyer? They had to send that film all the way up before they could get credit for sinking that destroyer. The Tuskegee Airmen also in the movie shot down German jets. Germany near the end of the war had jets. We still had propellers, the P-51. And the Tuskegee Airmen shot down 3 German jets en route to Berlin to bomb the factory. So that's just a part of history. And Dr. Richardson would tell you about that because George Lucas used $93 million of his money just to finance the movie, to get the history out to the people. And there was an HBO movie about the Tuskegee Airmen. Anybody see the HBO movie? Get a chance, look at the HBO movie. It tells the history. It shows Larry Fishburne flying the president's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt. In real life, it was Chief Anderson, who was born in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania. He was the person. So I want you to put your hands together for Dr. Richardson as he come up. And also, we will entertain questions and take pictures with you at the end. So put your hand together up for Dr. Richardson, a documented original Tuskegee Airman. Dr. Richardson is 92 years old, and he speaks at least 2 and 3 times a week.
I'm going to try to rely on my teacher and principal voice. So we'll put this aside. If my voice fades, you can't hear it, let me know. Ladies and gentlemen.
Can you hear in the back?
You can't hear? Okay, then I'll have to go to this electronic stuff. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Always a pleasure to be with you. As you were told, I'm a retired school teacher and principal. There's some things that, teaching gets in your blood. There's something about working with wonderful, beautiful, and handsome high school students that sort of gets to you, and you don't forget it. And one of the things that you hated your teachers for was giving you what? What did you hate your teachers for? What you didn't like? Homework. Huh?
Homework.
She said homework. Well, I have some of that for you. It's a very, very simple homework. All you need is one of your fingers and your computer. And I want you to do this for definitely. You're going to put in West Point Barracks, B-A-R-R-A-C-K-S. And I'll get to it later as the reason for it. West Point Barracks. But for now, let me tell you about another young man. This young man is, that's a lady. All right, this young man is Eugene Bullard. Eugene Bullard is the first African-American fighter pilot. Now, when we Tuskegee Airmen wanted to become Army pilots, we first had to sue the Army to get a chance to be pilots. Because the word was back then that black men did not have the intelligence or the courage to be fighter pilots. One study said that blacks were low on the scale of human evolution. Now, you know, the theory is that people descended from apes and that black people are still half ape-like. That's what this report was saying. It said the black people have very small brains. The black brain weighed 35 ounces and the white brain weighed 45 ounces. This is actually a report of a war college study, a report from a supposed war college study. So with that information, they didn't think blacks could fly airplanes. But yeah, here's a young man from Columbus, Georgia, Eugene Bullard from Columbus, Georgia, who at the age of 8, how far had you gotten in school when you were 8, by the time you were 8 years old? What grade? Huh? So, okay, this young man left home at the age of 8. Now, things were horrendous outside in Columbus, Georgia, back in the 1900s. You might know that as a result of slavery, black people were treated quite cruelly. There were beatings, lynchings, and all kinds of things went on back then. And in Georgia, it was especially horrendous. And Eugene Bullard's father escaped the lynching, but young Bullard ran away from home. His father told him there's a country across the ocean called France, where black men are treated more or less the same as white men. And Eugene Bullard was, it'd be so great to live in a place like that. I wouldn't have to worry about being lynched or beaten. I wouldn't have to get off the street or get spit on or any of that nonsense. So young Bullard ran away from home when he was 8, as I said. And his father told him this country called France is across the ocean. And the ocean is to the east. And young Bullard learned that the sun comes up in the east every morning. If you want to know where east is, well, on your way to school, look to see where the sun came up. That's east. Well, young Bullard kept going to where the sun came up. He worked with gypsies, he worked on a farm, he worked with cleaning and breaking horses, did all kinds of things to support himself as he kept traveling. He didn't know where France was. He just knew, keep going east, man. France is out there somewhere. So Eugene Bullard eventually, after a couple of years, gets to Newport News, Virginia. And he learned that a ship is going to sail back to Europe. So Eugene Bullard stowed away on this ship. And when that ship sailed away, Bullard was on it. They put him off the ship in Aberdeen, Scotland. He worked in Scotland for a while in a circus. He took up boxing. He learned to box. And he was in boxing matches. He earned money being in boxing matches. And he urged his promoter to arrange for a boxing match in France, because that's where he wanted to go. He knew he was getting closer. So as it happened, they did get a boxing match in France, in Paris, France. So now Eugene Bullard is in France. Oh, man, great. Well, it just so happens that World War I is starting. And Germans are attacking, going to attack France. And the word was that all good Frenchmen will enlist in the military. So Eugene Bullard considered himself to be a good Frenchman. So he enlisted in the French Foreign Legion. Now, France did not have slavery. France did not have the racism that existed in this country as a result of slavery. So France had no problem taking a black man into their military. So Eugene Bullard joined the French Foreign Legion. He was in Regiment 170, and he was a gunner. He was wounded at Verdun. You're studying history, World War II history. Well, you probably read about Verdun and other places. Well, Eugene Bullard was wounded in Verdun, the Battle of Verdun. And he wasn't able to function well as a soldier, but he learned that airplanes had gunners. On airplanes in those days, the guy in the back had a machine gun, and he would be shooting at other airplanes as he passed by. Well, Bullard's wound did not hinder him from being a gunner on an airplane. So Bullard was a gunner on an airplane. But he later learned that he could get into their flight school. So Eugene Bullard goes to the French flight school, and he becomes a fighter pilot. World War I, 1917. Now get that. World War 1917, this African American from Columbus, Georgia, is a fighter pilot for France. Tuskegee Airmen had to sue the Army, had to sue the United States Army in 1939 to get a chance to be pilots, because of that study that said that black men had small brains and low everything. But Bullard becomes a fighter pilot flying for the French World War I, 1917. He is the first African American fighter pilot. Eugene Bullard stayed in France after the war, and he bought a cafe. It was a cafe that was going bankrupt, and Bullard was able to buy it, take ownership of it. And since he was a boxer, he was also interested in physical fitness, so he had a physical fitness gym. So here's this guy. How much education did he have? How much education did Bullard have? Second or third grade education. So this guy with the pea brain and nothing going for him owns a cafe, has a fitness gym, and when Hitler conquered Europe for World War II, and the Germans were headed for France, all Americans were urged to get out of France. Now, it just happened that before America entered World War II, before America entered the war, American pilots would volunteer to go to France and fly for the French against the Germans. This was before America got into the war. Well, the men in that group of Americans were known as the Lafayette Escadrille. The Lafayette Escadrille. These were American pilots that were flying for France, even though America wasn't at that time in the war. But members of the Lafayette Escadrille later on were admitted into the United States Air Force. All of them except one. Now, which member of that Lafayette Escadrille was not permitted into the United States Air Force? Eugene Bullard was not admitted to the United States Air Force because of the color of his skin. Bullard was able, after the Germans entered France, Bullard was able to go into Spain. And with the help of the Red Cross in Spain, he was able to get back to the United States. Now, while Bullard was in France, I told you he owned the cafe and he owned the gym, but he also married a wealthy French woman. Here's a third grade dude marrying a wealthy French woman. My goodness alive. Well, at any rate, they had two children, Josephine and Lolita. And friends of theirs made sure that his children got back to America with him. And they lived in Harlem, Josephine and Lolita. Even though Eugene Bullard was a pilot, back here in America, he couldn't get a job of any sort. Well, he did get it. He got a job operating an elevator. At least he could still go up and down. He was an elevator operator. But he wasn't recognized by the United States government until after his death. After the war ended, there were a lot of airplanes, a lot of surplus airplanes, and people were buying airplanes. And people are buying airplanes and having a lot of fun just flying around. And when you probably heard of your grandparents going for a Sunday drive in the car. Well, now that there are all these airplanes around, people are buying airplanes and they're going for a Sunday fly. I see mostly girls. Do I see mostly girls? Well, at any rate, I had 8 sisters, so girls are very dear to my heart. And girls always want all the goodies that go around, so black girls are no different. This young lady is named Bessie Coleman. Bessie Coleman. The book of her biography is titled Queen Bess. Bessie Coleman lived just outside of Dallas, Texas, a place called Waxahachie, Texas. And Bessie Coleman got tired of chopping cotton and scrubbing floors, so Bessie moved to Chicago for better work opportunities. She got a real easy job at a barber shop doing fingernails. And she met the publisher of the Chicago Defender. And she's talking to him about her desire to fly an airplane, like she's reading about all these things that all these other women are doing. So the publisher said, well, why don't you do what Bullard did? Why don't you learn French and go to France and learn to fly? And Bessie did just that. Bessie Coleman in 1921 went to France, learned to fly, came back to this country with the hopes of having a flying school to get more black people into aviation. But she could never raise enough money to get the airplanes needed for a school. But she did fly around giving aero demonstrations, parachute jumps, doing aerobatics in airplanes. When you get in the car, what does the driver tell you to do? Put on your seatbelt, he tells you. Well, that's something pilots learn to do. As soon as they start up the engine, or even before you start the engine, fasten your seatbelt. Well, Bessie Coleman was in the back seat of an airplane, and she was looking for a place for a parachute jump, a good place for a parachute jump. So she's looking over, and the pilot helped her look, so he tilted the airplane, banked the airplane, and Bessie had not fastened her belt. So we lost Bessie in 1926. But a lot of flying clubs were started in Bessie's honor and at Bessie's behest. Now, I got the desire to fly an airplane when I was about 5 years old. My father took me out to this field, and I see these things up there, hear them buzzing around. I see them going through the clouds and diving and circling and doing loops and all that stuff. And then those things come and land, and people get out of them. Well, 5-year-old kids seeing something like that, it's got to be impressive. Well, it certainly impressed me, because from that day on, I said, man, people get out and they go up there and they do that. I want to do that. So since I was a little kid, I wanted to fly an airplane. Well, there were thousands of guys like me. When World War II started, well, before World War II, you guys in 11th grade, you heard about the economic crash of 1929, when the stock market went kaplooey, and the United States government reduced funding of the military, so the Army went to pot. But now Hitler started his thing. The United States realized, well, not knowing what Hitler's intentions were and being very fearful of them, the United States realized that we got to build up the Army, because this guy Hitler, he's going crazy. We don't know what in the world he's going to do. So now if you're going to build up an army during the 30s, armies need airplanes. Modern armies need airplanes. And guess what? Airplanes need pilots. But the Depression was on, and very few people were flying airplanes because people didn't have jobs. They didn't have money to fly airplanes. So in order to get pilots for the Army, the government started civilian pilot training programs in colleges all around the country. College boys could go and learn how to fly for free. But they weren't making any provision for the black guys who wanted to learn how to fly. And there were hundreds of black men who wanted to fly airplanes. 2 guys did some demonstration flights. They flew to 10 different cities, Dale White and Chauncey Spencer. One of their flights, they flew down from Chicago, they flew down to Washington, D.C. And there they met Junior Senator Harry Truman. And Junior Senator Truman said, look, you guys flew that thing down here from Chicago. I don't see why you can't fly for the Army. I'll do whatever I can to help you. So lo and behold, Truman and Dirksen signed legislation where 6 black colleges could have flying programs. West Virginia State, Howard, Hampton, Tuskegee, Delaware State, North Carolina, AT&T. These black colleges had flying programs, including Tuskegee had flying programs. And now black men are going and learning how to fly. Well, we always have intelligent, courageous people that want to have social justice and want to help us. So here we have an instance where Eleanor Roosevelt, the president's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, Mr. Watkins told you about Chief Anderson. Well, here's Chief Anderson. He was born right here, right in Bridgeport. He became the chief instructor at Tuskegee, and he's the guy that flew Mrs. Roosevelt around the Tuskegee area. Mrs. Roosevelt said, I heard you guys, black men couldn't fly, but I see you're flying here, and I want to fly with one of you. So Mrs. Roosevelt took a ride with Chief Anderson. And we think Mrs. Roosevelt had a lot to do with Tuskegee being designated the place where black men could go to learn to fly for the Army. That's the only place during World War II where black men could go to fly for the Army. That's why we call ourselves Tuskegee Airmen. Well, time is coming short for this period, but I want to flash through a couple things. Those were our instructors at Tuskegee. They'd learned to fly earlier. They taught us first to fly an airplane like this, two-wing airplane, two open cockpits. After the first squadron was formed, the guys flew P-40s, which were pretty good airplanes during World War II. This guy shot down the first German airplane in July of '43. When the Allies invaded Europe, they invaded through the port of Anzio, which was 30 miles south of Rome. And in order to keep the Germans away from messing up with our invasion, they had Squadron 99, which is a squadron of black pilots. They had Squadron 99 fly cover over the area. Now, our main job was to protect bombers. See, there are bombers here, big, heavy bombers here, and we would fly fighter planes about 5,000 feet above the bombers to make sure the Germans couldn't come in and shoot down America's bomber. Each bomber had a crew of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This first row, you're on the crew of a bomber. Now, if your bomber is shot down, you're going to have to walk home. One Thursday morning, they call it Black Thursday, one Thursday morning, 60 bombers were shot down. 10 men in each bomber. You do that arithmetic. Well, General Twine said, we need better protection. We can't stand all these losses. So they asked Colonel Davis, if his guys would come over and protect the bombers. Now remember, they didn't want black men to be pilots. So black men were just flying single-seated fighter planes, but these bombers had 10 guys in it. So and they were all white pilots. So now that they find out how well these guys can fly, they asked the black guys with red-tail airplanes to go and protect the white boys in the bombers. Our guys flew protective missions. A year, 200 missions. None of the airplanes that our guys were protecting got shot down. All the guys returned, which is why they call us red-tail angels, because all of our guys returned safely. We saved a whole lot of white boys' lives. They didn't want us to fly, but they turned out to be the best pilots. During the war, we received the Congressional Gold Medal for that. And because of that, President Truman issued an order that there'll be no more racial discrimination in the military. So today our military is thoroughly integrated. There are a whole lot of other things I'd like to share, but time is up. I do want to show you one other thing. Now, I told you about General Davis named his airplane by request. By request, because the bomber guys kept asking for our guys to escort them. This is Benjamin Oliver Davis. Now, when Davis went to West Point, he was ostracized. No one was allowed to talk to him. They didn't have a roommate. He couldn't even sit to the table with the other guys and have his meals, even though there were empty seats. Now, Davis went to West Point for 4 years, from 32 to 36. When his class was graduated in 1936, out of 276 cadets graduating, Benjamin Davis Jr. was number 35 from the top. Benjamin Davis Jr., after being ostracized for 4 years, in the top 13% of the graduating class at West Point. Today, well, they should have finished it last month, they're building a new barracks at West Point. That new barracks is going to be named after this guy. The new barracks is going to be named Benjamin Davis. Even though he was ostracized for 4 years, they felt he epitomized the character that they wanted at West Point. Now, I asked you early on to make the homework assignment. So once again, for homework, one of your fingers, I don't care which one, on Google or whatever your search engine is, West Point Barracks, B-A-R-R-A-C-K-S, and you will get a picture of Benjamin Davis Jr., and if you scroll down, you'll see the article where they're dedicating the barracks to Benjamin Davis Jr., this black guy that they ostracized at West Point. All right, sorry, time is up. Thank you ever so much. You're wonderful.
Yes.
I'm Thaddeus B.A. from the Eagle's Eye, and I'm honored to be here with the historic Tuskegee Airmen. Dr. Richardson, thank you for your time, sir. Sir, what is your name?
Arron Watkins.
Mr. Arron Watkins, thank you for your time as well. So let's get started this first question. So what was training like, sir?
Well, we had ground school in the morning, and it would depend. It flipped. We had ground school in the morning, and then we were on the flight line in the afternoon. And ground school was just as important as the stuff on the flight line, because you had to pass all of your exams in the classroom, and then of course those things related to what you would do on the flight line. And we had dual instructions. That if the airplane had full controls in the back and full controls in the front. The instructor was in either the front or the back, depending on the airplane itself. And the things that you learn in the classroom, you were supposed to apply to the airplane during your flight instructions. And obviously, you had every so often we had examinations in the classroom weekly, and then every so often you could possibly get a check ride on your flying. I think I had 2 check rides. For some reason or other, I don't know why. For some reason or other, the instructor thought he was questionable. It was questionable to him as to how well I was flying. So he had an examiner fly with me, give me a check ride. And I took the check ride, came back down. The check instructor said, he nodded, okay. And he said, "You afraid of your instructor?" And I said, "No." And he couldn't understand why I was having trouble, because there were no problems with him. When I was riding with him, there were no problems whatsoever. Then another time, during instrument flying. For instrument flying, you can't see anything. They put a hood over you, and you have to use just the instruments on your airplane to determine how the airplane is flying and where you're going and how everything is. So I got a check ride on instruments at one time. And if you flunk those check rides, then you can go back to the infantry or something. But and of course, you're always concerned about passing all these exams and all these checks, because that meant you either stayed in and moved along the line, or you went back to the infantry or something.
That is amazing. Mr. Watkins, how about yourself?
Well, let me just start off by saying it was because of the Tuskegee Airmen and the chief instructor, Chief Anderson, I was prepared probably maybe a little bit better than the original Tuskegee Airmen, because they taught me, they told me what to look out for. They told me the obstacle that was going to be, that I was going to face, and some of the things that the instructors were going to do to me. So that did help me along the way, but it did not stop the instructors from doing those type of things. And as I was saying before to you, my experience was when even though I finished college and I had some hours in flying from the ROTC flight school program, but that was flying a fixed wing, but flying a helicopter is totally different. So when I entered into helicopter school, we had a meet and greet, And the first thing that happened after 2 days was the commanding officer in charge came to me and looked at me dead in the eye, and he said, "I'm going to flunk you out. You won't make it." And so I was told that that was going to happen. So, and your natural reflex is to talk back or say something. But see, I was told that keep your eye on the prize. Don't forget your goals and objectives. Okay? So I just let him talk. I didn't say a word. And I said to myself, I don't see how you're going to do that because my instructor is over there, and he's over on the opposite end with some students. Right. 2 days later, I was his student. Wow. He was in charge of the class, so first thing he did was make sure I was under him. Wow. Okay? So my psyche was that I don't know if I'm flying right or wrong in this helicopter, if he's telling me right or wrong. But I had encouragement from other students and what the Tuskegee Airmen had told me. So he put me up for a check ride. But I knew that Tuskegee Airmen, they went through many check rides. Almost every Tuskegee Airman went through a check ride. So if I did not have that knowledge and that history, I would have been like, oh, no, I'm the worst pilot in the world. Right. But that really wasn't the case. I knew they went through that. So the good thing about the check ride during that time was that it was done by a civilian, not a military person. Right. So I had to go up for a check ride, and when I went up for that check ride, the instructor said to me, "I don't know why you're here." I said, "Well, how did I do?" He said, "You got 95 on your check ride." So I went back, sat around the desk here. Instructor came. I said, "Well, how did I do?" He said, "You just did pass with a 70. But see, I knew. Okay, I knew the games. Right. And after that, they had rules in place, and that was the greatest thing about it. Right. The rule was that if you went for a check ride, you could request a new instructor. And that was good. I was glad they had that in place. So he said, "I would still like to be your instructor. I know you can get a new instructor. I think we can work out anything." I said, "No, I want a new instructor." So I got a new instructor, and I finished that 4-week program. And during that 4 week, I was selected as the best pilot in the group. And then at the end of the 4-month period, and we were going to advanced training, that same instructor came to me. He said, "I tried to get you, but you got by." And guess what? I didn't say a word because I knew I had achieved my goal. But if I had said something, he could have written me up. Okay? And they would kick you out of flight school if you were late 3 times. You were out. You could do anything wrong, you would go before a board, and they could kick you out. Wow! So that was my experience with my primary flight.
That was amazing. So, Dr. Richardson, what made you pursue your education?
Well, well, believe it or not, when I got into flight school, I had not finished high school. A lot of the guys had time in college, but I took an exam. You know, at the time of World War II, when you turned 18, you could be drafted. Every kid at the age of 18 had to register for the draft. And they would, from time to time, I don't know how they pick out numbers or names or something, and you'd be sent off to the Army. You'd be put in uniform and sent somewhere, you know. But I didn't want it. I wanted to fly. And a white policeman told me that I could take an exam, and if I passed the exam, they put me on reserve to go to flight school. So I took the exam and passed. It just happens that I was always interested in airplanes. And I did a lot of extra reading about airplanes and things and science. So I was able to pass the exam, and sure enough, nothing happened to me until I was 17 when I took the exam. And a month after I turned 18, that's when a telegram came and told me to come down and to be sworn in. So I went down and I was sworn in, and they gave me tokens and tickets and stuff and train tickets and told me to report to Keesler Field, Mississippi. Well, that was a training center and also a classification center. Plus, it was basic, regular Army basic, you know, learn how to march, carry the gun, how to crawl, and all that dumb stuff. Well, we had a lot of exams while we were at Keesler Field. It was a classification center. And I finally got to Tuskegee in January of '44. And I told you flight school took 40 weeks. So they had a college training detachment where you went and took courses that I guess would bring you up to college level or something. So I was in this college training detachment, and after so many weeks of that, I went to the Army airfield for pre-flight, 10 weeks, and then start flying primary, 10 weeks, and then go to the basic flight school 10 weeks, and then go to the advanced school for 10 weeks. And after the advanced school, then you go into combat training. That's how I was able to get through all the stuff. So luckily,
Right.
I made it.
Right. How about yourself, Mr. Watkins?
Well, I always had this desire to be a good student and everything, and to study and to read different books. And I guess my start really started with my high school ROTC, that I was introduced to the Tuskegee Airmen and also the military. And then I went to Tuskegee, where it was strictly a military college in a sense, but college rich in history. So they had Air Force and Army, ROTC, with Tuskegee Airmen teaching college courses and being your instructor in your ROTC classes. Wow. So I was electronics was my major, so that was my major. So when I went to flight school, understand the electrical part of the plane and how to chart things and the flow of things really made life just a little bit easier. But I took advantage of, after the military and after Vietnam, they had the GI Bill. And GI Bill provided money for college education. And many of the Tuskegee Airmen used this GI Bill and military people to get that start in life. Right. So while I was in the military, you could take courses too. So I took a course, got an associate degree in computers. I was interested in computers because I had taken a computer course. And then after the military, I was going to get a master in computers, but I had a boss that told me, no, think about an MBA, because the computer field changed. Yeah. It changes, so you got to stay up on it. Right. And so I decided to do an MBA at University of Detroit. Okay. But again, in the tradition of the Tuskegee Airmen, they always wanted to advance. They were always seeking knowledge and achievement. So I had that desire, that burning desire, to further my education and anything that I could do. And believe it or not, back in the military, I used to look in the program for the astronaut program and fill out applications and everything for those. But I just had this desire to better myself through education.
Right. So, Dr. Richardson, how did you deal with racial discrimination?
Well, first of all, I tried to avoid situations where I would run into it. I did not go into town. I knew there were problems in town, and both wherever I was, in Biloxi, Mississippi. I knew there were problems in Biloxi, Mississippi, so I didn't go there when I was at Keekser Field. I knew that we were having problems at Tuskegee, in the town of Tuskegee, so I didn't go into the Tuskegee town. I just stayed on campus. I just avoid it, and first of all, understand that it's their stupidity that has them acting the way they did. When I went home on leave after finishing flight school, the proudest guy in the world, got my wings, my bars. I'm going home to see the family and friends, and I'm on the dining car, and the porter comes by and says, dinner time. So we all line up to go into the dining car, and the guy said, "Lieutenant, I can seat you right away." So I figure, oh man, I'm being recognized for my bars. Oh man. So I go up front and he said, "You sit here." I sat to a table and he pulled a curtain around me to segregate me from the rest of the passengers in the dining car.
Wow.
Officer of the United States military fighting for liberty, freedom, and democracy, and I got to sit in the corner with a curtain behind me. And that's just the way it was. And you know, you do it and without a whole lot of fuss and go back to your seat. I did everything I could to avoid trouble, to avoid being where I knew there was. When I was at after flight school, we went to Walterboro, South Carolina, for combat training. And on weekends, I would go to Savannah for recreation, for relief from all the junk on the military base. And you had to sit in the back of the bus. If you're black, you heard about it. Black had to sit in the back of the bus. Well, we would go halfway back and sit and wait for the guy to get nasty. And they actually threatened to call the MPs or call the police. The guy come back with his crank handle. The crank is a metal bar, come back with this metal bar. Now, you know where you're supposed to be. The niggas get in the back of the bus. I don't care about that damn uniform. You're supposed to be in the back of the bus. So I don't want to go to jail, so I can go to the back of the bus just to avoid.
Right.
To avoid all problems.
So, Mr. Watkins, how about yourself? Like, how did you do with it?
Okay. Well, you have to realize I was in school during the 60s in Tuskeege, Alabama. So there were demonstrations, there was marches. Governor Wallace was the governor, and people. We had voter registration, so we were demonstrating in school all of the time. And I was among the students that were demonstrating. But at the same time, as I got further up in ROTC, and I knew I was going to be a commissioned officer, there was certain protocol and etiquette we knew. We knew that we could not be doing the Black Power sign and things like that in uniform. You had to respect your uniform. So we did those type of things. Right. Now, once I was in flight school, it became totally different. I avoided all things like that because if I was involved in something of that nature, they would kick you out of flight school. That was just it. I wanted to be an officer, and I wanted to be a pilot at the same time. So the 8 months I was in flight school, I did not engage in anything of that nature because I wanted to become a pilot. But in school, with all the other kids, we were demonstrating, marching, and not only marching, but you heard of the Selma March.
Yes.
Okay, the first Selma March, I went on it, and and they didn't make it, so I didn't make it. The second time they did the Selma March, I played baseball. Okay. On a scholarship there, and the baseball coach said none of the players would go to the march because we have a game, and so we did not go. Right. And in a sense, I'm sort of glad and sort of sad that I did not go. Right. But I guess because of that, I was able to be entered into the Tuskegee University Baseball Hall of Fame for the school.
Wow.
So,
What position did you play in baseball?
I played second base with my position, and my senior year, if anyone was hurt beside the pitcher and the catcher, I played all the positions. I played every position, and I was a captain of the team.
All right, that is great. So I have two questions. One for you specifically, Dr. Richardson. For Mr. Watkins, I have another question for you as well. So, Dr. Richardson, how did you feel like? What was it like fighting in World War II in the 1940s?
Well, I knew that if you go to flight school, you're going to flight school to be a combat pilot. And I knew that if you're a combat pilot, you're going to be shooting at people, and they're going to be shooting back at you. I knew that was the case, but fortunately, I didn't have to go into combat. I finished flight school in March of 1945, and the war ended in May of 45. And I let the kids know that when Hitler heard I was in combat training, I was ready to come over to Europe. Hitler surrendered, and I didn't have to. I didn't have to go into combat.
Right. And for Mr. Watkins, for you, how did you feel being taught by such historical figures in African American history?
Well, again, Tuskegee is known for their rich history, black history. And when you first get there, you learn about Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver. But I really did not know the history of Chief Anderson, who was the chief instructor, because most of the Tuskegee Airmen, they didn't really talk about themselves. in World War II. All you knew was that they were in World War II. All you knew was that Chief Anderson was the chief instructor and flew Eleanor Roosevelt. Right. And so it was like he was just another person to me, but he would tell me stories while we were up in the air, everything. Only later, after I went into the military and even got my wings as a pilot, I realized the significance of Chief Anderson and Colonel Carter and some of the people, Colonel Knox, who were a part of the original Tuskegee Airmen. And then I felt proud. I realized even more how important they played in my life. So that's why we tried to tell the story to the young people, and so that they would know the history. Because without that history, I probably wouldn't have made it through flight school. I probably would have said, I have enough of this. Right. You know, the games that they were playing, and they were trying to eliminate me. Definitely. So I'm just proud to be here. I just want to give back to, I'm going to say, the community, to the young people. Definitely. And so that they will have a chance. They are our future. They are our tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Dr. Richardson, like I heard during your presentation that you guys sued the Army to become fighter pilots?
Yes. I mentioned they had civilian pilot training programs in colleges all around the country. And it turns out there were 6 black colleges that had flying programs. The whole idea with the flying programs was to get a reserve of pilots who could become military pilots. Well, one young man named Yancey Williams, he was in the Howard University program. He completed the program, got a certificate, goes to the Army and says, look, I want to be an Army pilot. I can fly. I've got my flight certificate from the Civilian Pilot Training School. And they refused him. Twice he goes to the Army, and they refused him each time. So he got with the NAHCP, and they sued the Army. Wow. And with that lawsuit, they agreed there'd be a squadron, there'd be a fighter squadron. And we think Mrs. Roosevelt, as you heard, had gone to Tuskegee and had been flown around the field with Charles Alfred Anderson. We think she had a lot to do with Tuskegee getting a contract to be the place where black men would go for their primary flight training for the Air Force. You know, pre-flight, primary, basic, advanced. Well, the primary flight training was done under Tuskegee Institute at Moton Field. I think we had 42 black instructors that taught the cadets to start flying. Yes.
Most people really do not know they had black instructors. At the beginning.
A lot of the instructors had finished the program earlier. Mm-hmm. One of the guys that became an instructor was Daniel Chappie James. Chappie James was an instructor. He got to Tuskegee on an athletic scholarship. But then he hears about this flying program, so he goes into flying, and he becomes a 4-star general. Wow. He was one of the Tuskegee Airmen, became the first black 4-star for the Air Force.
Wow. So, Mr. Watkins, what do the Tuskegee Airmen do for us, the youth?
Okay. Again, we are part of the Greater Philadelphia chapter, but throughout the country we have 52 chapters around the USA. And in Philadelphia, and most of them have the same mission statement, okay, for the youth. But at Philadelphia, what we do, we give scholarship to high school seniors. Mm-hmm. We give scholarship to high school seniors. Mm-hmm. And also, we give a scholarship to a student at Delaware State University who is in the flight program there. It's one of the few colleges, the only black college, that have their own fleet of airplanes. Yeah. And they teach aviation. So every year we give a student at Delaware State a scholarship. And we also have students from the local area here that receive national scholarships. So we send their application to our national organization. So we have had winners from the national organization. Also, we take kids flying through the Young Eagle program we have.
That's great.
And everything is free. And we expose kids to aviation, to ground school. And we have an aviation camp during the summer for some students, where they get a week of just strictly aviation and flying, ground school and everything. So we sponsor kids for aviation camp. We take them flying, and we even take kids on college tours. We have done that. We have taken them down to Delaware State down there, doing a homecoming football game to expose them to the campus life along with the instructors there. So there are some people that are in STEM program, and anybody in Philadelphia can be a member of the Tuskegee Airmen. You don't have to be in the military or one of the pilots from the Tuskegee Airmen. We have many men and women in the organization to promote our mission statement. We have students can become members too. We have some students who are in the ROTC program, and it's only $15 for the student, and they get a card with their name on it. It said Tuskegee Airmen. So we have students within the program also. So those are just a few things we do. And we have a big gala scholarship event every year where we honor the Tuskegee Airmen, the original guide, and we invite the students to the event and their parents, and we give scholarship away. And this year, the event is going to be the third Sunday in May. I think it's May 20th this year at the Springfield Country Club in Springfield, Pennsylvania, and everybody is invited.
Right. That is great. So last question, gentlemen. What was it like to witness Barack Obama become the first African-American president of the United States?
Yeah, that was fantastic. President Barack issued two special invitations to his first inauguration. One of those invitations was issued to Tuskegee Airmen. He said he stands on the shoulders of Tuskegee Airmen. You know, after President Harry Truman desegregated the military, then that desegregation ball started rolling throughout our society, and there were a number of laws. The Voting Rights Act was passed where states were no longer allowed to discriminate against blacks in voting. The Public Accommodations Law, before the Public Accommodations Law, black people could not go to toilets in restaurants, or black people, they could refuse black people service in restaurants. Black people had to sit in special sections of movie theaters. But after the Public Accommodations Law was passed, then every institution that served the public had to admit all of the public, black people, transgender, anything. And we had to be able to, now we can go use the bathroom, if you can imagine. Yeah. You imagine buying gas at a gas station, not being able to go to the toilet in the gas station? Well, that's the way it was then. But after the Public Accommodations Law, if you got a license to be open to the public, then you have to admit all people, all aspects of the public to your institution. This one guy was famous for distributing axe handles.
Maddox.
Who, Maddox? Was it Maddox? Governor Maddox. Okay, he distributed axe handles for people to use to keep Negroes out of various places.
Not too long ago.
And you're right, not too long ago. It was in the 60s. And the Public Accommodations Law outlawed all of that stuff. And that Public Accommodations Law came about after desegregation, which resulted from men of color demonstrating, well, let me say President Truman recognizing how well men of color were doing in the military, and especially how well guys were doing, you know, in the Air Corps. So that's why President Obama said he stands on the shoulders of Tuskegee Airmen, and why he invited Tuskegee Airmen to his inauguration.
He certainly does stand on the shoulders of you guys. So, how about you, Mr. Watkins? Like, what was your reaction?
Well, I was proud. I never thought that day would ever come, or I would see it in my lifetime. But to be able to see it along with some of the Tuskegee Airmen, and for the President Obama to have the Tuskegee Airmen right there, and they came there proud on a very cold day with blankets and everything. They were proud, the chests were out, and tears were flowing. So I felt very, very proud to think about our history and the things that we had gone through. So But I'd like for Dr. Richardson
Yes, sir.
just to explain to you about the first sit-in of the officer at an officer club, so you can see what some of the things that the officer may have done.
You know, remember now, your officers, the United States Air, your officers in the Army.
Yeah, right.
And Military Regulation 2-10 says that all military facilities shall be available to all persons who are qualified.
Right.
Well, at Freeman Field in Indiana, a guy named Colonel Selway was the commander of that field. And he didn't like black men being in the officers' club. So he issued a base regulation
Wow.
that trainees shall use officers' club number 2. Well, our guys were classified as trainees. Even our flight surgeon, who was a major, is classified as a trainee.
Right.
And so our guys, nah, we ain't going for that crap. You know, these are highly intelligent men who were, forceful, and men who were a little on the cocky side. So they decided that they would go a few at a time into the officers' club.
You are the greatest from the upper chapter of Tuskeege Airmen. Believe it or not, there are 52 chapters all over the country, and the original guys get together once a year. Now, the average age of the Tuskeege Airmen is 92. Dr. Richardson is 92. Now, you're looking at me and saying, are you 92? No, I'm not 92. But my name is Arron Watkins, and I was taught how to fly by the Tuskegee Airmen when I was 19. And the person who taught me how to fly was a person who grew up in this area right here. Now, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and I was in Alabama. Okay? His name is Chief. Let me just set this up here for a minute. So when we get ready to use this, oh, okay, I'm gonna have it. Okay, I put it in the PowerPoint. Okay. Again, my name is Arron Watkins, and I was taught by the original Tuskegee Airmen how to fly. And I wanted to fly as a kid. I was sitting in a high school classroom just like you. And someone told me about the Tuskegee Airmen. Never heard of them. I was in an ROTC class. These guys were World War II military people, Korean people, and they started talking about the Tuskegee Airmen and about what they did in World War II, about flying. So I said, I want to fly. And then I attended a college, Tuskegee University, that had a flying program. And one of the guys who taught me how to fly was from Bridgeport, Pennsylvania. And he was their chief instructor. In other words, he is the person that flew Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife of the president. And that's how they got the program, one of the ways they got the program. And I was only 19 years old. Little did I know anything that this guy was an icon. Because to me, he was my instructor. He used to tell me about the story, but I didn't comprehend at that age. Only later in life, I realized who he really was. Also, just want to show you this. Last March, we celebrated the 75th anniversary of the Tuskegee Airmen. When the program first started, March of 41. And this year, in March 22nd, we will celebrate the 76th anniversary of Tuskegee Airmen. And on here you see this gold medal. This is the Congressional Gold Medal that was given to all of the Tuskegee Airmen in 2007 by President Bush. And Dr. Richardson has one, normally wears around his neck. The Congressional Gold Medal is the highest medal you can get as a civilian. Now, again, this area here is a very rich area for history. The guy you see up here on the screen is a guy by the name of Emmerich Mallett, a first black to ever receive a license in the USA in 1912. 1912. You weren't even born in 1912. I wasn't even born in 1912. Okay? license number 105. In other words, he is the 105th person to ever receive a license in the USA. And guess where he was born? Pennsylvania. Sunbury, Pennsylvania. Guess where he flew around as a youngster? Norristown. He flew around in this area that you're in right now. And he helped to develop the aerial photo that we know today. He was taking pictures. He was one of the pioneers of the development of the aerial photo. So you sit in an area, you're located in an area of history. And today we're going to have a chance to hear Dr. Richardson, who is the original Tuskeege Airman, talk to you. So you're going to be in living history right here. Now, how many saw the Red Tail movie? Okay? If you haven't seen it, go see it. George Lucas was the director of that movie. Who is George Lucas? I don't know George Lucas. How many people seen Star Wars? George Lucas is the one who created Star Wars. Okay? George Lucas produced the Red Tail movie. Put $93 million in his own money to get the history out. Okay? And there's an HBO movie. And I'm just going to show you. I'm going to see the movie called, let's go back, Flyboy. Flyboys. I'm just going to do this and I'm going to flip it back. Dr. Richardson is going to talk about Eugene Bullock. In the movie of Flyboy, Eugene Bullock portrayed in there. They didn't really tell you his name. He was the only black French power in that movie. So you're going to learn about him today. Now, I'm going to start this off just a little bit different before Dr. Richardson come up. We're going to ask some questions first, and then we'll entertain some questions. Maybe some of you have studied the Tuskeege area, some of you have seen the film, Red Tail. I saw him. Any questions? We're going to do a little dialogue. Okay, I got it. Okay. Okay. The question is, was I involved in any dogfighting? Air-to-air combat. Let me say, no, I was not. I was in the Vietnam War. I flew fixed-wing and helicopter, all the helicopters. In Vietnam, I flew the Chinook, which is the biggest of all helicopters. And like special forces, we land in water, treated as a boat, land on the mountain top, 20,000 feet high, land on the top of this building, do everything. Okay? But many of the Tuskeege Airmen were in dogfights. At the beginning of the war, the Tuskegee Airmen was told not to shoot at anything in the air. Very important. Can you believe that? Your mission is to shoot at everything that's on the ground. You know, the trains, the transportation, someone in a car, truck, anything on the ground you can shoot at. The first time they shot at a plane in the air, they shot a plane down, was a guy by the name of Lieutenant Hall. And they put him up for court-martial for disobeying the order. But it went all the way up to a high level, and Eisenhower, the general, came down and decorated him. Okay? The first air battle that Tuskegee Airmen was in, they shot down in one day 17 German jets. One day, they did not want them to shoot airmen. So they were involved in many aerial combat flights. Anything else? Okay, how long did it take the Tuskegee Airmen to get their first flight squadron together, right? And it was called the 99th. I'm going to Dr. Richardson here, back in the day. She wanted to know how long did it take the Tuskegee Airmen to go through flight school and then get their first squadron, because it didn't happen overnight. The first class only had five graduates. So Dr. Richardson.
Flight school then composed of four sections: pre-flight, primary, basic, and advanced. Each of those schools were 10 weeks long. Now, white cadets went to different airfields for these different trainings, these different phases. But for black guys, they want to keep all these black guys in one place. So all of our training, all four of the schools were conducted right around Tuskeege Institute. They didn't think, had some pretty stupid notion that black men didn't have the intelligence to fly, so they said they would have an experiment to prove to you that you black guys cannot be pilots. Because we got a report that says your brain only weighs 35 ounces, and my brain weighs 45 ounces, and you're low on the scale of human evolution. You know, humans evolved from apes. Came down out of the trees, they became people. Well, you black guys are low on the scale of human evolution. You still have ape. So you cannot be, you don't have what it takes to be pilots. So we're going to have this experiment to prove to you that you cannot be pilots. So we're going to start off with very small classes. The first class had only 13 guys in it. We don't want to waste money and time, so we just have 13. Out of the 13 who started the flight school, 5 completed the program. The first class had 5 graduates. One of those graduates was Benjamin Oliver Davis, Jr. And I'm a retired school teacher and principal. You know what teachers like to do?
Stop for 8. Stop for 8.
Well, I still got teaching in my blood, so I still like to do homework. So I'll give you a homework assignment. You have homework today. Take any one of your fingers, I don't care which one, and go to your search engine, Google or Fox or whatever you use for search, and put in West Point Barracks. West Point Barracks, B-E-R-R-O-C-K-S. You got a picture of a guy named Benjamin Oliver Davis, Jr. He was in that first class. Scroll down, and you'll see where they're building a barracks, and they're naming it for Benjamin Oliver Davis, Jr. Because when Davis was at West Point, he was the only black cadet there, and they tried to force him to quit. Davis was ostracized for the 4 years he was at West Point. No one was forbidden to speak to him. No friend, no roommate. Even if they're at the president's table, you can't sit here and eat. That went on for 4 years. At the end of the 4 years, in 1936, when that class was graduating, out of 276 cadets graduating that year, Benjamin Oliver Davis Jr. was number 35 from the top. After being ostracized for 4 years at West Point, Benjamin Davis Jr. is in the top 13% of the 1936 class at West Point. Benjamin Davis epitomizes what they want, the characteristics that they want officers to have. For that reason, even though this guy's black out was ostracized and shunned, they're now honoring his character by naming a barracks for him. There's an Eisenhower barracks, there's a Bradley barracks, who's the guy MacArthur barracks. There'll now be a Benjamin Davis barracks, named after the black man that was ostracized at West Point. So your homework is to go into your computer, West Point Barracks, and you'll be able to read the article about Benjamin Davis Jr. He commanded the 332nd Fighter Group, the Red Tails. How many saw the movie Red Tails? But they didn't just write a script of that movie. They took our combat record and put it up on the screen. George Lucas spent $92 million of his dollars to make that movie. Benjamin Davis Jr. was the commander of the group. For the longest time, one of our early missions was to protect bombers. B-17s and B-24s. Each of those bombers did carry a crew of 10. I think there's 10 people in this first group. This first group did a crew of bombers. If the bomber gets shot down, they have to walk home. Well, one morning, six bombers were shot down. And you do that arithmetic. General Fine said, we cannot afford losses like this. So he asked Colonel Davis, the commander of those black guys in fighter planes, that they would come over and protect the white boys and the bombers. All the black pilots were in 232nd Fighter Group, the small fighter airplanes. But the bomber guys were flying B-17 and B-24s, but they can't maneuver, and German fighter planes would come in like mosquitoes. Knock out the bomber. So as Colonel Davis, the black boys would protect the white boys and the bombers. Now they didn't want black guys to be pilots. We had the Sea Army to be pilots. But when they found out how good we were, they said, we need you to protect the bombers. Our guys who protected the bombers on 200 different missions. And none of the planes under our protection were shot down by enemy fighter planes. Now from the ground, they shot down some. Enemy fighter planes weren't able to get in and shoot down our bombers. The fighter guys would be about 5,000 feet above the bombers, shielding them from Germans that might try to come down. And if you saw the movie Red Tails, you saw all that stuff in action. We received the Congressional Gold Medal in 2007. President Bush saluted us and awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. You saw it on the screen. On the back of that medal, it says, outstanding combat record, inspired revolutionary reform of public armed services. That refers to the fact that in 1948, President Harry Truman issued executive order, issued executive order 9981. That order said in effect that there will be no discrimination in the United military forces. So today, our armed forces are the most integrated part of our country. No discrimination, men, women, transgender, one gender, whatever you want, are all members of our armed services without any discrimination. That's the result of men of color performing so well during World War II that President Harry Truman, the senator from Missouri, was compelled to stop all segregation within our military. So we're very proud to be members of a group that are set to change our nation. Tuskeege Airmen to change our nation to what it is now. We got to watch out for people trying to take it backwards. Any questions?
Also, just like you know, as we tell the story, we also like to point out there was many white people in the corner of the Black Palace back in the 40s, okay? And one of the persons was the commanding officer of the training session at Tuskeege, Norris Harris. He graduated from high school at 14, from college at 18, couldn't even get a job, he was so young. But he enlisted in the military, became an officer. And after one commander was relieved of his duty, because they had color signs over here, white signs over here, color signs. Everywhere you saw, everywhere on the base, they had those signs. And Colonel Parrish came in, he said, I'm removing every one of these signs so that you guys will have the opportunity to study, to prepare, and train for the military. Now, to give you some idea of the classroom work, as Dr. Richardson said, it took about 40 weeks for him back in those days. When I went through school, it took about 32 weeks to go through the class. And let me tell you, 32 weeks, up in the morning at 6 o'clock on the flight line, pre-flighting the aircraft, learning everything about the aircraft. Flight at 12 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, we're in the classroom sitting down. And 32 weeks, every week you took an exam. Every week. And the first 4 weeks, if you flunked the exam, you probably was out. So you took an exam every week. Not only that, you took flying exam at the same time. So classroom work is very, very important.
Learning what you learn right now is very, very important. Learning your math, learning all of the subjects. The history is so important. Let me tell you that. History is so important. So it was not easy on top of the other things, the obstacles that we faced in your life, and even when I went through in the 50s. Because they were told that look to the left, look to the right. Whoever's to the left, whoever to the right, probably won't be there tomorrow. You could have been 10 in the class, and they said, today is only going to be 3 in the class. The rest of the guys were out, and they could have been the best. So they were the best of the best. So education is very important. And I'm tell you this one story for them ask a question. There was a guy by the name, from Philadelphia. I said from Villanova. Remember our chapel. He was a POW. Back in World War II, at Tuskeege Airmen, there was 66 who got killed. 32 POW. There was 992 that we did receive their wings. Okay? But this guy by the name of Richardson Smith, on his last mission, 139th mission, he was flying. And normally, the pilots would have 50 mission and go home. But the Tuskegee Airmen was short of people. So they flew well into the 800 mission. So he was on his 139th mission. And he was shooting at a train on the ground, ammo dumps and everything. And he got hit. And in his plane, you saw the red tail. You saw the one guy where gasoline came all through the plane. He was trapped in the plane. So I said to Luther, being trapped, how did you get out? Luther said, I did everything to get out. And then I finally decided to flip the plane open out. And I went out head first, but I was stuck halfway. And my foot was still stuck between the rubbers. In some kind of way, with his foot damaged, his ankle shattered, he fell out head first, descending to the ground head first. His parachute did not open all the way. It was like an umbrella halfway open. As he said, he would descend to the ground, he passed out, woke up again. But luckily, a tree caught him. In the movie, there's a tree in the background. But a tree caught him. And he said, when the tree caught him, he heard the German, they are speaking German. And they were asking him for his watch. Everything that he had on, they wanted to take it from him. But he said that the German treated him better than his white officers. They saluted him, they called him, respected his rank and everything. But his dream of flying was over. He couldn't fly anymore. He came back to the States, was in the hospital for a couple of years. But Luther did not stop there. These guys were made of the 3 Ds, dream, determination, and discipline. They were tough. They were the best of the best. He went back to college. He went back to school, and he became an aerospace engineer. And then after he became an aerospace engineer, guess what? He tried to get a job. Nobody would hire him. His wife, for example, they wrote to the president. They wrote to the president of all the major companies. Nobody would hire him. And after a long period of time, GE hired him. He worked for GE for 39 years. But while he was at GE, he developed some patents in his own name. Luther was an achiever. He never stopped. He never stopped studying. And those patents that he developed in his name, one of them was used on the spaceship that went to space, when they first went to space, that held all the fluids in place. Even though he couldn't fly, all obstacles against it, leg, one leg shorter than the other leg, he still did things to service his country. And as you sit here like this, you should say, I can do anything. And that's what they said, I can fly. So, I heard Dr. Richardson said, there should be some questions here. They even shot down jets. Did you know that? Did you hear the war? They had jets. Shot down 3 of their jets in one mission. They even shot down 17 like that. Not yet. So they could fly. We're going to wrap it up. About that time.
Oh, just one question for you. How many of you want to go to college? Now, I know college is quite expensive, and many of you want to go to college. Maybe you can raise your hand because you're thinking how much it's going to cost you to go to college, and you're trying to get college loans and scholarships and all that stuff. Well, how would you like to go for free and get paid to go to college? How does that sound?
I see something.
Get paid to go to college, and they will pay you. Right now, they're paying $1,400 a month for you to go to school, if you get into their school. Any of the academies, West Point, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, Merchant Marines, you go for it free, and they give you a stipend every month. They pay you to go to school. When you finish, you don't have to worry about a job, because they will insist that you take one of their jobs and get paid. Now, doesn't that mean worrying about how to get a scholarship, or worrying about your parents mortgaging the house to put you through college? Well, if you have good grades and good character, you can go to school for free and get paid to go to school. How do you like them apples?
And I worked for West Point Academy as a liaison officer, and I went out and recruited high school students. We were looking for high school students. And some of them that went to West Point that I recruited, when they got out, they did reserve time. They got the best job on. They said it was the best thing they ever had. And you don't have to even just go to academy to get paid. In your regular colleges, they have ROTC. ROTC scholarship. There are ways to finance yourself in college. And one thing that Tuskeege Airmen did, the really guys, at the end of the war, they came back and went to school because of the GI Bill that paid their way to school. And lots of them became doctors and education, high school teachers and principals, and married.
They gave us a quote for $75 a month. Where now, if you go there, we get $1,400, you get $1,400 a month. We got a quote for $75 a month. But hey, they got us through. Any questions? What is your homework for today? What are you going to do for homework? What are you going to do for homework? What's your homework? Okay, let me repeat the homework assignment.
West Point.
We're going to go to the search engine. We're going to put in West Point Barracks. West Point Barracks. And you will get a picture of Benjamin Davis. And scroll down and you'll get the account of the barracks being named for this black guy that was ostracized while he was at West Point. How many of you saw Hidden Figures? Movie Hidden Figures. Are you people alive? How many of you saw Hidden Figures? You saw Hidden Figures? You know what that was about, Hidden Figures? What was it about?
Right.
Right. Hidden Figures about 6 African American women working at Langley who did the mathematics. They did the mathematics to get astronauts to the moon and back. Oh, yes.
I've been.
Well, I hate sisters. I know that sisters, that girls think you're wrong.
Are you done?
And this lady is a full admiral. Michelle Howard is a full admiral. She's a graduate of the Naval Academy.
Isn't there a table in there?
Leaderships, not just one ship, but she commands the whole leadership. Now, before integration, they wouldn't have had black people commanding white people. They wouldn't have had women there. But since the forces are integrated, you have a black lady who's commanded a full commanding of all leaderships. And God knows how many thousands of white guys are under her command. These are things that happen because of how well Tuskeege Airmen performed, and President Truman signed the executive order 9981, which said no more discrimination against the military. Well, this one lady, she's flying a warthog at age 10, and she gets back to the airplane is shot up a bit. The mechanic is working on her plane. And you know, they don't use your own name, they have a call sign. They have some kind of symbol you use. Well, her call sign was KC5, I think. And the mechanic said, what does KC stand for? She said, killer chick. See, women think they're equal. Okay. They are. And here you have astronauts from this lady, this young lady is now a 3-star admiral. Stacey Harris is now a 3-star general in the Air Force. They're flying the 747 for United Airlines. But her weekend job is in the reserve. She's a 3-star general. Her day job is flying the 747. How do you like that? What is the average pay? My father, this is my son. My son is a captain with American Airlines. You know, parents put their kids on the floor to play with cars, instruction, training, and stuff. I used to play with airmen, with my son. He grew up, believe it or not, how in the world he grew up, he flew across the ocean. Across the ocean to France. When Luke and brothers came out, they took those veterans back to Normandy for the 27th anniversary of Luke and brothers. My son was the captain of the 777 that took them over there. And I got a chance to go with them there for a week. So look, it's available for you. All you have to do is want it and be willing to do a dirty thing. I don't like to say dirty words, Ross, but you have to do one dirty thing before that thing. W-O-R-K. Hate to say dirty thing, but W-O-R-K is something you have to do in order to get this stuff. What's the average pay? They're trying to get minimum pay of how much right now? What do they want minimum pay to be? They want minimum pay to be what, $15 an hour? Is that right? Is that right? At McDonald's they make how much? $10 an hour maybe? Well, I don't want to be obscene, but his pay is $300 an hour. Any questions?